And we're back. Ellie 2.0 radio on AM 950, Thurgood Marshall. Hey, remember that name, of course, very hard to forget, but, read up on him. Really, please do. Okay. Well, now for the big interview, I am absolutely thrilled with a capital T to welcome back to the show Stephanie Glaros, who has been, I think, the most frequent flyer on Ellie 2.0 radio. You may remember she's been on the show before because she was the founder and curator of Humans of Minneapolis, which helped humans tell their stories. And she has since then become one of two facilitators for a thing called One Small Step, which is an initiative of StoryCorps, that, the StoryCorps, okay? That StoryCorps that you hear on NPR on when you're the few minutes you're not on this station on Fridays, or whatever day it is of the week, or maybe it's every day of the week, I don't know. But One Small Step is an initiative that they have, which is aimed at getting people who have different perspectives talking to each other. Stephanie Glaros, welcome back to Ellie 2.0 Radio. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me, Ellie. I really appreciate it.
I'm just thrilled to have you back. I think you are the most frequent guest I've had in the 5 years of this show. So I think this is either your third or fourth visit back. So welcome. And so, Steph, tell us what One Small Step is, okay? And share with us how you got involved with it. Because your credentials, of course, are like fit it just perfectly. But go ahead, tell us about the program.
So, well, first, how I learned about it was really just over a year ago. It was January last year that my husband Corey and I were watching 60 Minutes, and there was a story where they interviewed Dave Isay, who's the founder of StoryCorps, about a new initiative called One Small Step. And what One Small Step does is it pairs strangers with different political beliefs together to have a meaningful conversation in order to see the humanity in each other, especially those who we disagree with. So we're watching this program, and they're showing, examples of these interviews between these conversations between strangers. And I'll never forget it. When the story was over, Corey and I just looked at each other, and he was like, these are your people. Like, this is like your whole deal. And I was just floored, because I just thought, it's like everything I believe in. And the fact that it was, StoryCorps that was behind it, I just thought, boy, this is something that could actually, have some legs and make a difference. So I actually reached out to them right away. I just sent them an email, and I just said, hey, I really believe in, this program and what you're doing. And I'm out here, how could I get involved? And they, at the time, basically said, we'll keep an eye on our website, and jobs will be posted as they come up. So eventually there was a posting, I just kept an eye out for it. And eventually there was a posting for a facilitator role. So I applied and got the role and started.
As you should have.
Well, thank you. It just seemed right up my alley. And like I say, with StoryCorps behind it, it just felt like, wow, this could be something that could really, cause that sort of ripple effect that you and I have talked about so many times. So that was back in the fall. And then ever since then, I've been facilitating, and convening these meetings between people with significant differences in their political beliefs, as well as oftentimes, significantly different lived experiences, to create a container, let's say, a room, a space where they can connect authentically, get to know each other as people, and not necessarily talk about politics, although oftentimes they do, but the idea is really more about getting to know each other as people, finding out, more about each other via storytelling, talking about your own background, how you grew up, what were your early influences, in order to, I would say, give everyday Americans an opportunity to do something concrete to bridge the divides that so many of us are frustrated with.
No, I mean, it's incredibly powerful. I mean, I've gone on and I've looked at some of the videos. At the end of each video, One Small Step has this statement that One Small Step believes it is our patriotic duty to see the humanity in those with whom we disagree politically. What a powerful kind of mission statement, particularly when you throw this patriotic duty thing in, because it really is true. I mean, the fabric of our democracy is at risk right now because we're disagreeing with each other. And I listened to, excuse me, I listened to Tristan and Christy from Oklahoma City. Tristan, a 25-year-old man, and Christy, a 52-year-old woman who self-described herself as a liberal with a fist. And Tristan, the younger human, said he was a conservative. But both of them at the end spoke about how happy they were to be Americans, and that being a liberal doesn't necessarily mean you can't believe in our country, which of course is true. I mean, I believe in America. I mean, why do I do all my work? And I know you believe in America. So tell us, this is fascinating. Okay. And so, Steph, how are the people recruited? Okay. And do you have a term for these folks other than just humans? And subjects, that's probably not the right word. Interviewees.
Well, we call them participants.
Participants. Okay. How are they recruited?
Well, it's all volunteers. So anyone can go to takeonesmallstep.org and actually sign up. But we have people from all over the country, but we do have 3 cities that we call our anchor cities. So that's Fresno, California, Wichita, Kansas, and Richmond, Virginia. And so in those communities, StoryCorps is doing more specific outreach sort of on the ground, creating partnerships with local organizations and recruiting participants that way.
Okay.
But it's something that anyone can sign up for. We also have, I believe, 6 what we call hub radio stations, and one of them being in Grand Marais, Minnesota, where StoryCorps essentially usually works with a local radio station and helps get them set up to do kind of their own version of these kinds of conversations. So, helping them with the technology and learning how to facilitate conversations in those communities.
And are they calling it One Small Step in Grand Marais, or do they call it something else?
Yep, it's still called One Small Step.
Okay, all right. And so, and what has the reaction been? I mean, do you have a lot of people signing up to be participants?
Yes, lots of people signing up to be participants, which I take as a very good sign.
Right.
The people who sign up tend to sign up for similar reasons. So one of the things I do at the beginning of each recording, we call it, because all of the conversations are recorded and then archived both in the StoryCorps online archive as well as in the Library of Congress, which is our long-term preservation partner. I have them ask each other at the beginning, why did you want to participate in One Small Step?
Yep, I saw that they all started that way. Yep.
And so you hear, the same thing over and over, where people are just frustrated. Something I hear a lot from people is that they are afraid to speak their views out loud because they're afraid that they might get yelled at. People don't want to get in arguments about this stuff. People are exhausted. Many people have lost friendships and, even family members over political disagreements. And so the people that volunteer are really wanting to do something about it. And like I say, this gives them an opportunity to do what we call, taking one small step toward each other.
Well, and I watched the snippet of Deborah and Larry from Fresno. And Larry's an older white guy who's wearing a cap, and Deborah, Asian younger woman. And I was very impressed because Larry, the older white man, said, he was on there one small step because he sees a lot of problems with people being categorized. Okay, which of course caused me to say, hey, he's talking about grouping and labeling, what I talk about all the time. But I was impressed because Larry asked, he must have been brave, and I don't know where, you told me off script it's 50-minute interviews, and really on the website are just snippets. But at some point he got the guts to ask Deborah, the Asian woman, what challenges have you had? Have you been discriminated against? I mean, I thought that was a highly vulnerable question on the part of Larry, but very important question, and Deborah was, she was just very, very honest about the fact that, that she gets discriminated against regularly, and so even in that little 3-minute, clip that's on your website, you see this humanity from humans, you see the vulnerability, you see the honesty. And so what have Steph, what have you learned from doing this? Because now, how many interviews have you facilitated at this point? You've been doing this for what, 6 months?
Not even. Let's see.
Okay.
October is when I started, and I think I've done. I think I've completed maybe 40, which is not a whole lot. So I don't have a huge sample yet.
Hold on, let me just stop you. So as these interviews are going on, are you on? Are you off in the background?
The recording itself, I'm mostly on mute.
Okay,
So I'm listening, I'm taking notes. I might step in once in a while. But for the most part, it's meant to be a conversation between the two people.
But you're there. I mean, you're monitoring what's going on. Okay.
I'm very much there.
I'll come to the monitoring in a second. But what have you learned through this process?
Boy, I've learned so much. I've learned that, civil conversations across differences are not only possible, but I think probable when they're sort of engineered correctly. So if you're setting them up a certain way, there's a certain ground rules that you're following, and it's been amazing and really heartening to see how, again, in this with these specific circumstances, that people are willing to listen respectfully, hear opinions that they may vehemently disagree with, but still being willing to listen. I've learned that people's opinions are much more nuanced than I think the media would lead you to believe.
Right.
Now, the people who volunteer for the program are going to be a certain type of people. They're going to be people who are interested in building bridges. So we don't necessarily get a lot of people who have extreme views on either sides. But, what I'm hearing from people who are, somewhat more in the middle is that people are frustrated with both political parties. People don't feel that their views are totally in line with either party oftentimes. And so it's encouraging to me to see these conversations where people are willing to talk about those gray areas, talk about that nuance, because again, if you just listen to what's the voices in the media, you start to think that everybody has these extreme views. I don't think they do. I just don't think most of us exist kind of on the edges. It's life and people are so much more complex than that.
Right.
But I hear people from both sides concerned about the exact same things, bringing up the exact same issues that they're both concerned about, bringing up the same fears for our country.
Yep.
And finding surprisingly a lot more common ground than you might think.
Well, you've been through my gray area thinking training. And you know, one of the things I talk about in that is that 98% of all humans have good empathetic hearts, 2% challenged, okay? But are you finding that 98%? Are you, I mean, are you finding that maybe it's even more than 98% with the people that are your participants? Because I heard, I mean,
Absolutely.
I heard compassion on the snippets that I watched, okay? I mean, I was hearing compassion between humans.
Absolutely. And you know, it's interesting how all it really takes is hearing a little bit about someone's story and a little bit about their background. You know, if you when you hear how somebody grew up, the family structure they grew up
Yep.
in,
Yep.
you know, what were their, you know, what where was the geographic location, what was the, you know, what was their faith background, whatever it is, you don't have to hear even that much of someone's biography to then take the leap to understanding where their political views came from. And so that's what I'm trying to do in these rooms is you know, help people connect authentically, you know, speak about their own lived
Right.
experiences, you know, talk about their backgrounds, and then you can kind of start to get in more into, you know, talking about this political stuff, but without the defensiveness, you know,
And the
without
rancor,
the,
yeah. Go
you
ahead, go
know, yeah, I mean, it's just
the shaming, yeah.
the shaming. And I think, I mean, again, it's just kind of the situation, you know, the formula that StoryCorps has sort of come up with to setting these things up, which they've done with the help of researchers, social scientists, psychologists.
Yep.
You know, it's all very intentional, uh, but it really works. And as long as people are approaching it with, you know, an open mind and with some genuine curiosity, uh,
Mm.
it really works, and it's incredible. I mean, I'm constantly floored at
I
the
am so
conversations that I'm hearing. I mean, you know, people.
I'm so jealous. I've just gotta tell you, Steph, I am incredibly jealous of you. Envious would be the right word, okay? Because you're doing you're doing what I advocate we need to do. So, but go ahead, I interrupted you. What were you gonna say?
Well, it's just it's so it gives me. I mean, you and I are both idealists. Uh, you know, so I kind of already went into it with sort of you know, where I tend to see the good in people, but to kind of hear it and see it play out over and over and over, where I'm listening to people talk about things that I didn't think we could talk about anymore.
Mm,
You know, just as an example, I had a recording recently where it was a white man from Texas who lives in Georgia, in more of a suburban area, and then a Black woman who also lives in Georgia in more of a rural area. And they were talking about their experiences of the pandemic, which were very, very different. And they were able to then, from there, talk about their decision to be vaccinated or not. So he had chosen to be vaccinated, and she had chosen not to.
huh,
And to listen to the two of them have that exchange and have that conversation with zero animosity, with, you know, no blaming, no,
yep.
you know, and just listening respectfully and understanding, going like, I can understand why you made that choice, is just incredible to me.
You know, I just I I could talk with you now, I mean, all day, but unfortunately, we're getting towards the end of the interview. Will you give the audience again how they can find out about One Small Step?
If you
Where would they go?
They would go to takeonesmallstep.org.
Okay. Now, Steph, you know I'm going to ask you. So, what what made you an idealist, and how is this? I mean, I think I already know the part of the second answer here, which is how has this fueled it. But how'd you get to be an idealist?
I think it's in my blood. It's really in my background. I mean, both of my parents, both sides of my family are sort of glass half full people, you know, and so I just sort of grew up in that type of an environment. But then I think it's really been just fortified and strengthened by my experiences as an adult, where I believe in people. I believe in our ability as individuals to learn and grow and evolve, as long as we're willing to. There's anything's possible, and I think when we put our minds and our hearts and our hands together, I believe as Americans, there's really nothing we can't do. But it really, I think, starts with the individual, again, taking these steps, in order to sort of, just heal these divisions. And I think we can do it. And a lot of people probably disagree with me. And again, that's okay. I'm fine with that. But One Small Step program, all it's doing is reinforcing that belief in me.
Well, it's just a phenomenal program from what I've seen. I will do my best to make sure that we share about it. This interview, a link to it will be in my newsletter that's going to come out this month for sure. But Steph, I just want to say something to you, okay? I've known you now probably for close to a decade, and I just want to tell you how proud I am of you. I know that you've had some challenges. I know that, sometimes your idealism has been dashed, but you never gave up. Okay? And I just want you to know I am incredibly proud of you.
Well, thank you, Ellie, and I'm also incredibly proud of you. You've done so much to again, to be a bridge builder, to be out there, to put yourself out there in a way that I find incredibly courageous, and I know you're making a huge difference in the world, and so I appreciate all the work you do, and appreciate you as a person.
Thanks. Okay, well, Steph, I may have you back on in a year, okay, to hear more about what you're listening to, what you're hearing. And the next time you come back, I'm going to want to talk about the ripples, okay? So, because the program is relatively just getting going, but I'm sure that there are ripples, and there'll be more ripples that'll come through, okay? So We'll have you back. We'll have you back. We'll continue with you as being the most highest frequent flyer on Ellie 2.0 radio. Okay. All right. Sounds good. Listeners, it's just been great to talk to Stephanie Glaros yet again from Take One Small Step through StoryCorps. And Steph, keep up the good work. Okay. And just keep helping people to be human and reinforce our belief in the common goodness of all humans. Okay.
Will do.
Thanks. All right, listeners.
Thanks, Ellie.
When we come back from our break, I'll talk about my work as an idealist, okay? All right, you're listening to me, Ellie Krug, on Ellie 2.0 Radio on AM 950. We'll be back in a second. Thanks. Well, Patrick, that was a damn good interview. But you were talking to someone, so you didn't hear it.
No, I did hear most of it.
Okay, well, that's all right. I don't care. I just want to make sure that you caught that we were wrapping up. So, okay. All right. Let's do the first segment, and then we'll figure out your math, okay? How's that sound?
Sounds good to me.
All right. Crew on the Ellie 2.0 radio. How are you? Happy Saturday to you. Geez. Welcome back to Ellie 2.0 radio, a show that is all about idealism and idealists, where we highlight the human spirit that grabs certain people to want to make the world better for all humans. We do that on this show. We've got another great show. I'm battling the start of a cold here, so you're going to hear a little sniffling. Sorry. The big interview is with a frequent flyer of this show, Stephanie Glaros. I've had her on, I think, maybe 3, if not 4 times before. She is now a facilitator for a brand new initiative through StoryCorps. The initiative is named Take One Small Step. You're going to love this interview from Stephanie. It will reinforce, your optimism about America. And in my C block, of course, I'm going to talk about my work as an idealist. But here, right here in our A block, continuing with my desire to recognize and honor Black History Month, I want to highlight one of America's most important. Frankly, I am disappointed in Ellie Krug. We are 5 years into this show, heading towards episode 270, and I have not, up until now, talked about Thurgood Marshall, who has the distinction of having been the first African-American, first Black person ever appointed to the U.S. Supreme Court. I cannot believe that I have not talked about Justice Thurgood Marshall. This short clip will barely do justice to Justice Marshall, but quickly, let me begin by sharing that Thurgood Marshall was born in Baltimore, Maryland in July of 1908. I wrote 2008. Why did I do that? Of 1908. And to give you a real sense of this how special he was, his birth name was Thorogood, but in 2nd grade, he decided to shorten it to Thurgood. Obviously, Thurgood was determined and assertive right from the start. Thurgood Marshall, his father was William Canfield Marshall, held jobs as a waiter in hotels, clubs, and railroad cars. Now, remember, back in the early 1900s, okay, Black people, not a whole lot of them rising to the top. And then his mother, Thurgood Marshall's mother, was a school teacher. One of his father's hobbies, William Canfield Marshall, one of his hobbies was, as it turned out, to follow legal cases. And frequently he would go down to the courthouses in Baltimore and take Thurgood with him, where they would watch and observe the legal proceedings. Thurgood would later say that his father, quote, never told me to become a lawyer, but he turned me into one. He taught me how to argue, challenged my logic on every point by making me prove every statement I made, even if we were discussing the weather, unquote. So think about that, the influence of his father, the influence of a parent on a child. Sorry about that. Growing up, Thurgood was described as an energetic and boisterous child who frequently got himself into trouble. In fact, this continued all the way into college, when Thurgood was suspended from college for 2 weeks because of a hazing incident. And of course, growing up in the 1910s and 20s, Thurgood attended segregated schools in a Black college, Lincoln University in Chester, Pennsylvania, the oldest college for African Americans in the United States. By all accounts, notwithstanding his mischievous nature, Thurgood Marshall was smart. He graduated with honors from college and then was first in his law school class. But it was with law school where he bounced against segregation big time. Thurgood had attempted to apply to the University of Maryland Law School, but was rejected because it was a whites-only law school. At the time in America, almost every state-run law school was whites only. He then was accepted at Howard University School of Law. You know, the famous Howard University in Washington, D.C. And while there, so he went to Howard for law school. And while there, he took classes from Charles Hamilton Houston, another idealist who taught his students to be, quote, social engineers by using the law to fight for civil rights. As I said, Thurgood graduated first in his class in 1933 from Howard Law School. And a few months later, he passed the Maryland bar and opened a law practice in Baltimore, believing that he was going to be a private practice lawyer. However, Thurgood didn't succeed in private practice, largely because he spent too much time doing pro bono work for members of the community. However, soon he was volunteering for the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, in its Baltimore office, where he started working with his old law school professor, Charles Hamilton Houston, to represent Donald Gaines Murray, a black law school applicant who was denied entry into the all-white University of Maryland Law School, the same law school that several years before had denied Thurgood's law school application. Thurgood and Professor Houston argued that barring black people from attending Maryland's law school violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. That clause holds that no one can be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process, and that can't be denied to any person. No person can be denied equal protection of the laws. So the laws should apply to all humans equally in America. The Maryland trial court agreed with this and ordered that the Maryland Law School admit Murray. And it went up on appeal to the Maryland Court of Appeals. The Maryland Court of Appeals affirmed the trial court, saying again that Murray should be able to go to law school at the University of Maryland, even though Murray was black and law school had been white. Because the state of Maryland didn't appeal that decision to the U.S. Supreme Court, the Murray case became the law of the land in Maryland. But since it was just Maryland, just a state case, the Murray decision wasn't applicable to any of the other, states, the other 47 states at the time that existed in America. Thurgood later said that the Murray case was, quote, to get even with the bastards who had kept him, unquote, who had kept him from attending the law school himself. Hopefully, Patrick, it was okay that I said that word on the air. And if not, you're going to have to let me know. Now you have to realize that by 1936, when the Murray case was decided, Thurgood Marshall was only 28 years old. He was only 28. Out of law school barely 3 years. And he had accomplished something that even a 30 or 40 or 50-year lawyer hadn't been able to do. But following that Murray case, Thurgood and Professor Houston teamed up by the NAACP to successfully take on the University of Missouri Law School and other cases where they succeeded in forcing the University of Missouri Law School to allow black people to attend. By 1938, when Thurgood was just 30 years old, he was named Director Counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund. Again, 30 years old. Think about that. From there, the rest is history, as they say. By the time 1954 rolled around, Thurgood had obtained court rulings ordering the University of Oklahoma to admit black students to its law school. He helped destroy racial covenants in America, getting the Supreme Court declared that they were unconstitutional. He was also able to get the Supreme Court to declare, that would be the U.S. Supreme Court, to declare that segregation on interstate buses was illegal. Altogether, of the 32 civil rights cases Thurgood Marshall argued before the U.S. Supreme Court, he won 29. What a batting average. But the most important case, of course, that Thurgood Marshall was ever involved in was Brown v. Board of Education. That case was handed down in 1954 by a unanimous Supreme Court, and then amplified it in a subsequent case in 1955, where the Supreme Court finally declared that separate but equal was no longer the law of the land. In October 1967, Thurgood Marshall became Justice Thurgood Marshall of the U.S. Supreme Court, where he served until October of 1991. 2 years later, in 1993, he died of heart failure, and Thurgood Marshall is buried at Arlington National Cemetery. There you have it. The way too brief, bare bones story of one of this country's most idealistic humans. All I can say about Thurgood Marshall is wow. The impact of one man, just one idealist on the history of America. And of course, you know I'm a lawyer. And of course, this just reinforced why I went to law school so long ago. why I decided to go and try and make the world better as a lawyer. Not necessarily doing that now. I'm doing it more as just Ellie Krug, human idealist, but nonetheless. Thurgood Marshall, okay? Read about him. There's movies about him. There are books about him. But remember him most of all as somebody from an early age who knew he was going to be a lawyer, who went and did it, and in the process protected millions of humans. Okay, that's all we got. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Stephanie Glaros from Take One Small Step, a StoryCorps program, an initiative by StoryCorps. You're going to love this interview. And if you like what you hear, visit my website at elliekrug.com. Follow me on Twitter at Ellie Krug. Email me at elliejkrug@gmail if you want to, because I love hearing from my listeners. I hope you like this show. Let me know if you like it. It would be good. I'd like to get reinforced. Just one little email with a sentence that says, Ellie, I like your show. That would be great. Okay, we're going to take a break. We'll be back in a sec. Thanks.
I waited hours for this. I made myself so sick. I wish I'd stay asleep today.
Math, Patrick.
All right, I am ready.
All right, sounds good. And we're back. Ellie 2.0 Radio. All right, Stephanie Glaros. You listen to her and you just absolutely have to feel good about humans, about our country. And trust me, she is quite the idealist. Trust me. And I hope that didn't sound like false or condescending when I said I was proud of her, but I am. I've known her, and she has persevered against a lot of challenges, and I can just tell that this job is the job that she was made for as a human. Okay, all right. So C Block, I don't have a whole lot of time to talk to you, but and I'm not even remembering if I've talked to you about this. If I have, I'm sorry if I'm boring you again. But now you do know this, that I go into the schools and I speak to the LGBTQ plus students. I do. I did that just Monday, this past Monday I did that. And, these are young humans struggling to find their authenticity or to keep it because society is telling them they have to be a certain way and they're not that way. But I always love talking to them because they make me remember why I do my work and because they're so real. They're just really nice humans. They are, and I sat next to a young person as I was speaking on Monday who just so warmed my heart. They were just so incredibly sweet. So I'm aware that the stats are not good for our younger LGBTQ plus people. They have horrible percentage of them suffer from depression, from substance abuse, from attempted suicide and actual suicides because society is unrelenting in many times. Families are sometimes unaccepting. And thank God the schools, like my school district, Eastern Carver County Schools, provide a place for them to be safe and to have conversation, to be mutually supported. But that's only during the school year. And it's only during the school day. The rest of the time, they're left to their own devices. And that's not good, particularly over the summer. So I have decided that I'm going to, and some other people are helping me, so it's not just the Ellie Krug show, but I have decided that Carver County, Minnesota, a red to purple county, needs to have its very first LGBTQ plus youth support group. And I've decided that we're going to create that. We're going to get that going, and it's going to be facilitated. It's just a space where LGBTQ youth ages 12 to 17 can come, check in. How are you doing? How things going? Mutually support each other, laugh, okay, maybe cry. Facilitated by an adult. It's not mental, it's not therapy, but it's to give them a space where they feel that they belong, where they're certainly safe and they can be mutually supportive of each other. So I am on a mission to create this. And I can tell in Carver County, this is going to make some waves. I've already this week, somebody said that I was a man with an agenda. I said, no, you mean woman, she, not he. And the person replied back, no, you're a man and you have an agenda and I'm not going to support it. Okay. Oh, all right. If that's the least of the criticism I get for this, I think we'll be sailing good. I'm anticipating more pushback. And I don't know why. I mean, these are just kids that need some help, And I mean, somebody said to me, well, why don't we have a, support group for, all kids? And I'm like, that would be a great idea. But right now, the kids that need it more than anybody else are the LGBTQ plus kids. So let's get them going. And absolutely, I'll help create, other support groups for other groups of young humans. Absolutely. But our LGBTQ plus youth are greatest at risk right now. And so, I'm looking for support from various sources. I don't think some of them are going to come through for me. And by support, I'm not like talking about money. I'm just like talking like a letter, letter of support out in the public that says, we believe this is a good idea. I think that certain entities with political clout are not going to come through for me to just even do that. But I got to find a place where we're going to have these meetings. I got to find some facilitators because it's not going to be Ellie Krug unless it has to be. Okay. Got to find a little bit of money to pay the facilitators, but we're not like talking $1 gazillion here to do this. So listeners, I don't know all, the 15 of you listening to the show right now, I don't know, maybe one of you are a facilitator that has experience working with youth. If you are, do you know somebody who does have experience facilitating conversations with youth? Okay. In a group setting, will you contact me or have them contact me? Email Ellie, J, E-L-L-I-E, J, K-R-U-G, elliejkrug@gmail.com. Please. I'm looking for facilitators to try and get a roster put together. I will no doubt come back to you and talk with you about this. Okay. It should sound like a no-brainer, right? I'm anticipating that it's, going to be a little bit tough, but don't worry. I mean, come on. You know me, right? I mean, I hope I'm making you laugh. You know me, because I'm pretty persistent. So, all right, well, there's that. I got to wrap it up. So a big thanks to my producer, Patrick, who had to do a little bit of math today, but not so much. Big thanks to you for tuning in every Saturday or Sunday or on podcast. Please let others know about this show because I'm trying to ripple across the world. And between now and when you hear my voice next, you know what's coming next. If you're a regular listener, between now and you hear my voice next, go out, do something good to make the world better. Okay. Help another human, tell someone you care about them, offer a lending hand or a lending dollar. Okay. And just go and be good. Okay. All right. I'll talk to you next week. See you then. We're going to have another interview next week as well. So take care. Bye-bye.